So I invited the first speaker of this high-level segment on fostering adaptation and mitigation co-benefits in freshwater coastal marine ecosystem continuum, leveraging opportunities and mobilizing finance for resilient and net zero development. Our first panelist is Mrs. Fatima Simina Vagwe, Chargée de Mission in the Ministry of Environment and Sustainable Development of Mauritania. Then I would like to kindly ask His Excellency Mr. Almotaz Abadi, Deputy Secretary General in charge of Water, Environment and Blue Economy of the Union for the Mediterranean. Mrs. Rahil Barza, Lead of Climate Adaptation Nature Finance of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, EBRD. Please take a seat. Also, Almotaz, thank you. Mrs. Najia Garbi, General Director of the Deposits and Consignment Fund of Tunisia, and Dr. Arun Kumar Shubedi, Chairman of the Muktinath Darshan Company from the private sector. We are not going to have a discussion, but it is the time for you all who represent important countries and organizations and sectors to share with us your statements on what we have discussed until now, what are your, let's say, conclusions and also suggestions for the next step of bringing mitigation and adaptation together, and also for what we have discussed about the nexus, maximizing benefits and minimizing maladaptation or mitigation. I start with Mrs. Fatima Simina Wage from Mauritania. And you speak in French, and we'll have the translation by Sarah.
À vous. Vous pouvez prendre la parole et puis je m'assurerai de la traduction.
Ok, d'accord. Merci. Donc, bonsoir à tous. Donc, je me réjouis. Bonsoir à tous. Donc, je me réjouis d'être parmi vous pour vous prononcer ces quelques mots au nom de Madame la ministre de l'Environnement et du Développement durable de la Mauritanie, pour vous parler du thème relatif au nexus, eau, énergie, alimentation, écosystème. Donc, c'est une interconnexion complexe qui s'articule autour de la préservation des ressources naturelles, dont l'eau est le ligand principal. Donc, à cet effet, le gouvernement mauritanien est conscient de l'importance stratégique de l'eau, aussi bien à travers les écosystèmes d'eau douce que côtiers et marins. Donc, sur le plan marin et côtier, notre pays dispose d'une bande côtière d'une grande importance écosystémique et socio-économique. Donc, on a une ouverture de plus de 750 km sur le monde qui constitue une opportunité pour le renforcement des échanges économiques. Et la bande côtière a un climat chaud tout au long de l'année.
So I excuse our minister who had to leave today to Nouakchott, and I'm happy to represent her and today to talk about this important topic, which is the WEFI nexus and this complex interlinkages that is articulated around natural resources preservation and where water is the main linking connecting element. Mauritanian government is very aware about the strategic importance of water through the freshwater ecosystems, both and also marine ecosystems. In terms of coastal and marine ecosystems, Mauritania presents an important ecosystem, coastal ecosystem that represents 750 kilometers, which constitutes an important opportunity for trade exchange, economic trade. Among the, of course, important elements of this coastal area is that it represents an ecological transition zone among the areas where there is the richest in terms of fishery.
Donc, cette bande côtière est une zone de transition écologique parmi les zones les plus poissonneuses au monde. Donc, un capital naturel abritant des zones protégées, couvrant plus du tiers du littoral. C'est une zone au régime éolien exceptionnel et un ensoleillement important qui rend cette partie du territoire privilégiée pour la production de l'hydrogène vert. La zone abrite aussi des terres fertiles et plusieurs sites naturels qui sont favorables à l'agriculture et l'aquaculture. C'est aussi un potentiel minier très important.
So, in addition to being the richest area across the world in terms of fishing, it represents a huge capital of marine protected areas that covers almost a third of the coastal of the coast of Mauritania and providing a huge potential for ecotourism. Also, the coastal area presents a huge potential for wind energy as well as also solar energy. In addition to that, fertile lands and many natural sites that are good for aquaculture and agriculture. Finally, it's also a zone with a huge potential, mining potential.
Avec toutes ces richesses, le littoral mauritanien reste quand même très fragile, donc il requiert ainsi une attention particulière pour sa protection. Donc face à cette situation, le gouvernement mauritanien a mis en place des mesures urgentes d'ordre local et régional pour faire face à ces fléaux que je ne vais pas citer ici, vu le temps. Donc, dans ce cadre, il y a des actions et des activités spécifiques qui ont été prises pour renforcer la résilience de la bande côtière et plus particulièrement, c'est la ville de Nouakchott contre les incursions marines. Donc, au niveau de la partie continentale, la Mauritanie a opté pour des solutions fondées sur la nature pour la conservation et intégrer ses ressources pour l'amélioration des systèmes de production. Donc, pour l'alimentation en eau de la ville de Nouakchott, par exemple, depuis plus de 20 ans, ce sont des eaux de surface qui sont exploitées. Donc l'eau est pompée à partir du fleuve Sénégal avec des conduits d'adduction qui font plus de 500 km et qui sont surveillés par télésurveillance. Donc pour l'intérieur du pays, nous avons également réussi un important projet d'adduction à partir des eaux de barrage en s'appuyant sur le relief montagneux. Et puis maintenant, on arrive à alimenter des villages, plus de 200 000 personnes, avec des conduits d'eau de plus de 200 km. Donc il y a un projet d'adaptation aussi des zones humides qui a pu faire ses preuves au niveau de la Grande Muraille Verte. Donc actuellement, nous sommes sur le point de lancer. Okay.
Est-ce que je peux te remplir? Excusez-moi, merci beaucoup. So, despite all these huge potential, Mauritania remains a fragile and vulnerable country, and facing huge challenges that she will not have the time to develop. However, she will mention some of the solutions that are being taken by Mauritania, including many activities related to nature-based solution. Also, the city of Nouakchott that is being supplied from the Senegal River for distance for over 500 kilometers of channels, and while the inland areas are supplied from dams from dams, internal dams. Also, Mauritania has an important project on wetlands of adaptation related to the protection of wetlands.
Ouais. Actuellement, il y a un ambitieux projet de modernisation de la ville de Nouakchott où des mares urbaines vont être aménagées avec des plantes hydrophytes pour filtrer l'eau des déchets et des pollutions, pour recycler l'eau et l'utiliser pour des fins du maraîchage urbain, le nettoyage et l'arrosage public. Donc une ambition qui vise aussi à planter près de 4 millions d'arbres au niveau de la capitale pour rehausser notre image écologique.
Also, a very important project that relates to the modernization of the city of Nouakchott, including planting more than 4 million trees, and will helping the recycling of water through special plants.
Malgré tout, nous avons quand même besoin d'appui pour plus renforcer notre résilience et notre adaptation au changement. Donc, plus particulièrement, l'attention sur notre besoin en termes d'appui à la connaissance de nos potentialités en ressources en eau. Donc, nos ressources en eau ne sont pas très bien connues. On a besoin d'un appui pour mieux les connaître afin de mieux structurer nos politiques de gestion. Donc, il est également important de trouver les technologies adaptées pour le drainage des eaux de pluie qui impactent de plus en plus nos centres urbains et ruraux.
Despite all of these efforts, of course, Mauritania needs more support, in particular in terms of the knowledge of water resources and as well as the drainage of rainwaters.
Et c'est ce qui nous mène à chercher un appui auprès de WGP dans l'élaboration de notes conceptuelles pour des projets bancables et éligibles à l'investissement climatique.
And this is why we are requiring the support of GWP to prepare concept notes for GCF proposals.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. And unfortunately, we don't have the time because you raised so many important issues, but we don't have the time to discuss. But the message is very clear. Now, I kindly ask His Excellency Mr. Al-Motaz Abadi, Deputy Secretary General in charge of water, environment and blue economy of the Union for the Mediterranean, to take the floor.
Thank you very much, Professor Escolas. I'm very delighted to be here in the middle of this panel. I have a colleague, male, very good. And this is one of the things that we actually appreciate about what you are doing, that we always bring together all our gender perspective. And thank you very much for that. So being at the Union for the Mediterranean, I was really entertained today to hear from different actors, member states, development cooperation, as well as from NGO and financier. And this is exactly what we are really always pushing to achieve, which is the building partnership across the board and doing what we call it the whole of government approach as well as the whole of society approach. And to do so within the framework of a very, very, how I describe it, it's a unique structure that brings together the 27 EU member states and the 15 around the Mediterranean, where if you know the Mediterranean region, it's a little bit very complicated from environmental, ecological, climate change hitting us hard, as well as nobody can describe this region as a geopolitical entity. It's a geographical entity, has many diverse aspects. Hopefully that we will keep the patience to and the ambition to move forward. We are promising all our member states that we will do so, even the situation is very thick, but we need to counter it. And the best approach when it comes to all across the work with my colleagues, other deputy secretary generals, that working from social to climate change, to economic development, as well as to go to the issue related to the women empowerment. The WIFI Nexus was really identified as an example, the water, energy, food ecosystem Nexus, because here we find the way that how we can convert from what we call it talk to walk the talk in terms of policy influence, as well as to put a framework within the national authority, as well as within the North-South and South-South and triangular cooperation within the Mediterranean country to measure not only the dollar value of our work, but also the impact and how we can create the change. And taking the WIFI Nexus as an example, it is a complicated example, but at the end of the day, we discover one thing, that you have to do it within the political will. So you have to work with the member state on the political will. This is why we had established a special platform that bring together the member states representative from the 43 member states, as well as we convince them that we need to make sure that the civil society and the international actors are within the framework. And this is exactly what we have done since the last ministerial meeting that had been held in Malta. Sapiano knows that he was part of the things. And we are moving there. But a second element, away from the political will, is how to convince our member states to do what is necessary to be done at reform and regulation. And here, honestly speaking, is another challenge that we have to address, and this is why we now doing the framework of Nexus in the Mediterranean with building even this Nexus framework action plan. It's an example how to work, because we built a coalition from DG, near European Union, to all our partners in the Mediterranean, either from the north or the south, and this will be hopefully approved in the next ministerial that we are planning at the end of 2025. And the last point here, which is very important, I have 1 minute, there is, okay. So the third element, which is very important, how to show to our political level in the Mediterranean that how Nexus can also solve the issue. And here is a very good point to address, which is the root cause of problems. Now, if you open any local TV in Europe, you will find migration, migration, migration. And they are talking about migration in a way that, wow. And sometimes they forgot that those migrants, they could be assets for them, and they are a big really lost for the south, because it includes also drain, yeah. And this is why we said, okay, now we have Ukraine war, we have war on Gaza, we are seeing many bad things happening with the energy sector, with the food security. And then what happened? Nexus. We have to tackle the energy, lack of energy. What? All the investment in Sharm el-Sheikh 27 COP was talking about green hydrogen. And all signature of our region was on Egypt, Tunis, Morocco, and the three countries actually, they are classified as a water scarce country. And green hydrogen need a lot of water, 15 liter per 1 liter. And this is why we need to look at it from this perspective. The second element that we are missing, and I depend on you, Mr. Skoulos, and yesterday I discussed it with the Director General at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the food security. So this is one thing that I leave the floor here. We have to work on the food security within the Nexus framework, because this is the future of our generation, by creating small, medium enterprises on those three: water, energy, water, as well as water, energy, and food. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Their Excellency. Yeah. It is, well, it is complex. And what we need to understand is that complex problems cannot have simple or simplistic solutions. This is the first from where we start. and we are ready to deal with complex problems. Otherwise, we don't have future. And I have to say that through Nixus, we hope to have more also options for peace, because it was discussed also this morning, adaptation problems or mitigation solutions in one country may cause adaptation problems in the next one. So we need to take also this dimension, which is so important for our region, the peace dividend of Nixus. Allow me to move to Mrs. Rahel Barza, lead of climate adaptation, nature finance of EBRD. EBRD is taking many initiatives and supports many interesting projects. So please.
Right, thank you. So the EBRD includes many water-stressed ecosystems as well as critical freshwater and marine habitats, as diverse as, of course, the Mediterranean basin, but all the way to the Aral Sea. So what we are doing is we're translating our unique mandate of sustainable private sector development into low-carbon, climate-resilient development, looking not just at this water-carbon nexus solution, but looking at systemic solutions. So tackling this problem from both the supply side and the demand side. So on the demand side, we start from a due diligence in all of our investment projects. The bank is Paris-aligned, so we screen for physical and transition risks in our projects and identify opportunities for them to contribute to these low-carbon, climate-resilient, net-zero pathways. And so we also support results-based finance and science-based targets. And we do this across all the wide variety of sectors we work in using a variety of financial mechanisms. For example, in our agri-food sector business, we've had great success recently looking at sustainability-linked loans and bonds to promote water use efficiency and energy efficiency. For example, several soft drink producers from countries such as Egypt, Turkey, and Mongolia. In our green buildings work, we take this same principle. We support stringent standards. We try to invest in LEED certified projects. For example, with our client Shunkali Holding in Mongolia, who are making the new headquarters in a former dilapidated factory and getting LEED silver certification, meaning they're reducing the energy use for that building by 30% at least, and the water use of that building by at least 20%. So we're trying to support these very concrete targets that deliver impact both for the water savings and for energy efficiency. And what's interesting about these projects, they do require some concessional finance. The EBRD is founded on sound banking principles, so we try to identify bankable projects and investments. But sometimes that little extra bit of grant support really enables broader impact, and in some cases can translate these targets from a specific project to wider client operations. So these are often very small amounts of resources. And some of the projects I just mentioned, we're talking about maybe 0.5% of grant finance in these projects to lead to very large-scale impact. So by mainstreaming both these standards and the availability of these donor resources across our business operations, we can really get cumulative, larger-scale impact. So we're driving this in many different initiatives, as mentioned. Some of those projects I mentioned were funded by the GEF through our Envatech and FinTech programs. And we're also growing a new initiative, the Blue Mediterranean Partnership, to drive greater investments across these topics in the Mediterranean region. So if on the demand side, the story is of light nudges, small resources to stimulate change, on the supply side, we really have to go big. We're looking at big infrastructure projects. There's large desal projects, wastewater treatment plants and recycling, working with large-scale utilities. And we see this in that we're very pleased that the EBRD has just recently signed its largest resilience investment to date of over 200 million euros for desalination in Morocco. As our colleague from Morocco was mentioning earlier, it's a big objective in Morocco to develop unconventional water resources. And this is a particularly important one because I was working with a private sector client with OCP, and they have seen this opportunity to invest in their own water resilience, to reduce their water use as well in this process, but by taking advantage of economies of scale, also providing water resources to local communities and reducing pressure on local public budgets to supply this resource by this large capital investment. So we think this is a really excellent example of how the private sector can contribute to energy savings, water savings, and public resilience goals. We also, as mentioned, I think by our colleague from Lebanon, are trying to capture the benefits of wastewater treatment, not just for providing recycled water for water use and fresh water, but for that carbon savings from avoided methane emissions. And ideally, we're working to deliver potentially our first nature-based solutions stage in a wastewater treatment plant, which obviously captures multiple different co-benefits, low energy, and also a carbon sink. This is an ambition. We're not there yet, but it's something we're actively developing across opportunities. So we all have heard and we know the benefits of these approaches. Everyone who researches it, it's clear to them. It's clear to a few bold first movers who are developing these investments in their own activities. And it's increasingly clear, I think, in the business community and the wider infrastructure sector. So the EBRD's role in facilitating this transition to these nexus solutions, this systemic thinking, is going to continue to evolve so we can continue to provide leadership and support for our countries in this new transition, hopefully in close cooperation with our valued partners.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much indeed. And, thank you for mentioning 3 times the systemic approach. The systemic approach is not time to explain more, but is both integrated and holistic, both. And this is very important to see everything as a whole, but also get into the different parts of that, which is the integration. So let me turn to Mrs. Najia Garbi from Tunisia, from the Deposits and Consignment Fund, very important public investment bank of Tunisia.
Thank you. I will thank GWP for organizing this side event, which focused in the most important issue for our country, which is the water sector. For Tunisia, 65% of the population live on the Mediterranean coast. And it's important for us to have a good mitigation and strategy for our country. Because also there is a correlation between development and adaptation to climate change. The CCDR, which is published by the World Bank in November 2023, shows that if Tunisia does not adapt climate change, the economy would contract by 3.4% in terms of GDP by 2030. And also, this will have a consequence for the agriculture sector, which is important for Tunisia. And this sector will see the added value fall by 15% between now and 2030. It's very important. The CDC is therefore convinced that the urgency of climate action and this climate action needs special mechanism to finance project. We really integrate environmental and social risk throughout the investment process of CDC. And we target to create and measure the social, economic, and environmental impact of our investment, in addition to the financial return. We propose innovative financing mechanism suitable for climate change, mitigation and adaptation projects, like green bonds, insurance concerning our readiness. I'm confirm that we have made exceptional good progress. We have a well-trained team, and our green bonds framework is ready. As at least we are looking for we have a list of eligibility criteria for green projects. And we are actually working in order to have the pipeline of project, and we will be supported by GWP for that. And we have also in process of accreditation for GCF, which can be important for us to the fundraising for the projects, public or with public sector or private sector. Also, CDC is a public investor, and our mission is to support public policy through investment and contribute to sustainable development. Our area of expertise and core business is investment, and we are different from other financial institutions because our resources have a long maturity, and we have more capacity to finance projects with a long-term return. And our role is to create financial additionality by our investment, to create leverage and to play a catalytic role. That's our principal mission. And also we have to have demonstration for our role, particularly through innovation in terms of financing mechanism. We can invest by PPP project or by raising fund through thematic bonds, or by being trusted third party to manage financing lines to programs. We deploy different mechanisms depending on the target, the risk, the return, and the impact to create created by the project. We work with different DFIs in order to implement our CDN and to finance projects in the pipe of the project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Actually, I'm impressed by all the preparations you have made. Wishing you all success. And going from the public to the private now, it is my great privilege to welcome Dr. Anur Kumar Subedi, who is chairman of the Mukti Nag Darshan. And he was, if I'm not wrong, former advisor to the Prime Minister on Finance of Nepal.
Thank you. Though I am from private sector at present, but before I was also in the government's birth. So my views are somehow amalgamation of governments and private sectors. And now moving from Mediterranean to Himalaya, Everest. First of all, I would like to thank GWP for availing me such a important forum. I am from Himalaya, and Himalaya is a freshwater tower for more than 45% of the global population, from Elu River to Mekong to Indus River. And at present, for last 1.5 decade, Nepalese Himalayan rivers are facing entirely different problem, as well the Indian Himalayan rivers. I am also in the energy business, so we have been gauging the discharge of our Himalayan rivers. And in monsoon, the volume of the snow in our Himalayan peaks is being highly depleted, and proportion of water is being extremely increased. So in each and every season, Nepal and left Gangetic Plain is facing problem of flash floods. And in winter or dry season, there is no saving account of the water. So the melting of snow will be less, and most of the glacier are being dry out, and our Himalayan rivers are having low discharge. So the conventional hydrological study is not working in Himalayan rivers at present. If the situation will be continue, and it is up to the Almighty who knows the future will be like the future of Indus civilization and Saraswati civilization. Why I am talking this particular point? Because Ganges is the most holiest river in the world, and it is feeding the inhabitation of 500 plus million people. So in case of Nepal and other Himalayan region, particularly south of Himalayan regions, the global community must correct in its views and its approach. Particularly the environment lobby, I would like to request the environment lobby to correct its views. Making high dam in Nepalese context is now being pro-environment, pro-civilization, and pro-humanity project, pro-humanity. And in the meantime, what we have done in our model of development for last 3 decades, development means making road in our fragile mountain. We have connected most of the villages of our fragile mountains by roadways. Now, instead of alluvial sludge, most of the Himalayan river are carrying sedimentation. So, left bank of the Ganges is being desertified at present. This is another problem. To get rid of all those problems, we Himalayan countries have to adopt a new strategy, making high dams as alternative saving account of water. But making high dam is extremely expensive. So if Green Climate Fund or other climate impact fund managers will avail the viability gap funding, at that condition, the private sector will come to construct the high dams, and it will be a big solution and giant leap for the future. And the international community, particularly climate community, must mount pressure on Nepalese government and Nepalese policy maker to search the alternative transport system in fragile mountains. Being in private sector, we are insisting to construct cable car instead of roadways. Now, in Nepal, 90% of the clean energy projects are being made by private sector, and 100% of the zero emission transportation project made by the private sector. Now, being a person from the private sector, we are now promoting and developing a daredevil project all the way from Pokhara to Muktinath. It will be a cable car project connecting all of the intermediate cluster of the population, having 16 intermediate stations, and having total span of 81 kilometers. after commissioning of this project, it will be recorded in the Guinness Book of World Record as the longest cable car system in the world. Why Muktinath is so important? It's the holiest shrine for Hindu and Vajrayana Buddhist. We are having 1 billion Hindu population in our south. So if, imagine, 1 billion Hindu population will start their pilgrimage to travel Muktinath by roadways in our fragile mountain, what will be the situation and what will be the emissions? So, here, I know I am having a little time. So, without delay, again, I would like to request the Climate Impact Fund managers to turn their head towards our projects and towards Nepal. But Nepal, in spite of two sequential democratic elections, we are still in political transition, and a lot of number of policy and laws we private sector are waiting to be reformed for accessing private sector to climate impact fund. Up to now, Nepal has no policy and laws to access private sector for climate impact fund. So it's my sincere request to GCF as well. Please mount pressure on Nepalese government so that they will turn their policy formation modality and will adopt the liberalized economic policy and laws. Thank you. Thank you again.
Many of the problems you mentioned are also Mediterranean ones. And thank you very much for this presentation. And I think we have to conclude here to thank you all for your excellent contributions. And we are going to wait for some of you in the next meeting on the 2nd and 3rd of December in Athens, where we are going to discuss financing more and also the private sector. And I would like to conclude actually the day by saying that we all recognize the complexity. At the same time, we have understood that mitigation and adaptation are the two sides of the same coin. We knew from the beginning, but only now everybody realizes that. It took time. Also, we realize that nature and protection of nature is not irrelevant with all other aspects. So it is right that we added ecosystems in the nexus, the water, energy, food. We have also the ecosystems there. And we need to understand that there is no single solution for all places. We need to systematize, perhaps cluster cases, but definitely we need to understand that is a site-specific issue when we are talking about the nexus. And let me share my optimism also with Al-Motazabadi that we are going to have by the end of 25 a very successful strategy, and successful in the sense that we will be ready also to present an action plan and a funding mechanism. So thank you very much all for being with us all this time. Thank you.